Welcome everyone to today's spoiler warning with myself, Tom Colohue, and jam-packed thy name is spoiler warning because there is a lot of news to cover today. Firstly, our headline story will be discussing the NXT rebuild that is impending and will be coming through soon. As part of that, we'll also be discussing some planned call-ups and some cancelled call-ups that happened recently. We'll be discussing NXT involvement in the draft and in Survivor Series, and that will be the end of talking about NXT, because we will be talking about the supposed plan for a Braun Strowman return. There is also news coming out there at the moment from WrestleVote about Roman Reigns finally losing his championship. There'll be a small update on Sasha Banks and Naomi, one last match to add to Clash at the Castle, a little something on expectations for AEW's All Out show and the general effect that people are having going into that one, something on the discussions right now of Velveteen Dream return, and something on the UK return plans for the WWE. So when I say we're jam-packed, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different stories that I will be reporting today exclusively right here on the Tom Colohue channels. So please do remember, if you're watching on Twitch, hit follow. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button because we have 12 likes and 34 viewers so far, and subscribe if you haven't already. I will also, of course, be answering your questions, so please be sure to get them in. I'll give one piece of news, answer some questions, and go from there. So firstly, to start with, NXT. There's been a lot of questions coming through from you guys about changes for NXT 2.0. I've been asking those questions based on the questions that you've been asking, and I finally have some information for you. NXT right now is not being considered Triple H's main priority. Shawn Michaels is taking charge of that, and a large part of his recent promotion is to allow him to work solely on that area. We will not be seeing the end of NXT 2.0. It is believed that 2.0 does serve a purpose. However, Triple H does want to go back to the black and gold, and a large part of that is bringing in more people. Now, with NXT Europe and NXT Asia both in the running at the moment to make their resurgence, Triple H is planning to use all of those interweaving as best they possibly can. So there will be a lot of trades across a greater third brand. NXT Europe and NXT Asia will not just be feeding NXT, they will be trading in and out of NXT, making it essentially one large resource for lots of different shows. NXT will be the feeder to the WWE, of course, picking people up from across the world. Now, the NXT rebuild that we're looking at is, as I say, not a priority at the moment. After the draft, we will start to see changes in the NXT structure. If the draft has been pushed back, it will be early 2023. Shawn Michaels is currently drawing up their proposals, but the return to the black and gold is on. We are likely to see a number of people come from the main roster permanently down to NXT, similarly to Mandy Rose, though Mandy Rose is someone that is looking at a call-up shortly. Around the time of the draft, we have a number of call-ups planned. Bron Breakker is someone that the WWE proper has wanted for a long time. However, to be entirely blunt on that, it is just discussions at this point in time because Triple H seems to want to keep Bron Breakker in NXT for a while longer. Toxic Attraction have also been discussed. Legado del Fantasma is guaranteed at this point, and there's a number of others such as Cameron Grimes that have been mentioned as well as a call-up on the offing. Cancelled call-ups earlier in the year after SummerSlam, we were supposed to get Bron Breakker called up. Triple H said no to that. However, the Ciampa call-up did continue as was expected. There's a number of other people slightly lower down the card. Kaylee Ray, Alba Fire, I believe she is now, is one on the list to call up sooner rather than later, as is Cora Jade, interestingly. I also want to briefly discuss planned NXT involvement in the draft and Survivor Series. We will see a lot of NXT in the draft. They are planned to have as many call-ups as we did last time around from NXT. It's interesting that we still haven't seen Gable Steveson wrestle, to be fair, and he was called up last time round, so they're planning to be a bit more careful. But Triple H wants shocks, Triple H wants surprises, he wants debuts, he wants people skipping NXT in the draft as well. And as an aside for that, there are no plans at the moment for NXT to feature at Survivor Series. It will purely be Raw versus SmackDown. That is our first few pieces of news. We do still have more news on Strowman, Roman, Sasha Banks and Naomi, a new match for Clash at the Castle, AEW All Out, Velveteen Dream, and return plans for the WWE for the UK. I will get to some questions, so please remember to get as many questions in as you have at the moment. The chat rate on YouTube grows based on the amount of people chatting, so it is a big help to me to get more chat messages through. Also remember, 15 likes, 58 viewers. Please remember to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Right, Sean says hello Tom, welcome Sean. Bailey says hello Tom, welcome back from the technical difficulties. I do apologise for the issues that we had on Friday. I do apologise for that. I do appreciate everyone still coming by regardless. Ophir says spoiler warning time. Glad you're enjoying it. Simon is asking about Sasha and Naomi. We will get to that. Spider Boss is also mentioning about Sasha and Naomi. We will get to that. Ophir says watching SmackDown on Friday is going to be a schlock, knowing I have to be up at around 8 to get ready for Clash. It's a difficult time to be a UK wrestling fan, again, as per usual. Spider-Boss talking about Sasha appearing on A&D Rivalries. More on that story later. Spider-Boss says, why did WWE move the finals of the Women's Tag Team Tournament to tonight's Raw instead of a Clash at the Castle? They did not move them. The plan was always for the finals of the Women's Tag Team Tournament to take place on this episode of Raw. I reported that last week. John said, is there a reason why Bianca doesn't wrestle much? Is she injured? She is not injured. The focus right now is not on Bianca. The focus is on Bayley and her faction. So Bianca Belair has been essentially saved. They're keeping Bayley and Bianca apart for a reason. LF says, I don't see Roman losing on Saturday. Do you see a stipulation being added where Drew could win the WWE title and Roman keeps the Universal title? Nope, I suspect that would have already happened if it was the case. More on Sasha and Naomi later, Simon. Spider-Boss says, WrestleVotes reports final decision about Roman vs. Drew will be made on Cardiff. More on that story later. Connor says, hello Tom, hope you've had a great day. Great so far, absolutely. Stephen just says, oh yeah. Well, welcome Stephen, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Stuart says, evening Tom, good to see no issues for your stream so far, touch wood. Touch wood indeed. We did have some pretty major issues unfortunately on Friday, but we've been able to push through those. Noob says, hello Tom, how are you doing? Doing very well, thank you, hope you are as well. We have someone here whose name is the worst channel you've ever seen. I do remember you. Then Gargano's 2018 heel turn was the worst heel turn in WWE history. Disagree. Stone Cold Steve Austin exists. Sean says, is it true that Triple H is erasing Karrion Kross's first main roster run? Yep, 100%. 100% gone. Get the tables jumping in there as regards the A&E episode with the absolutely accurate information. Sasha Banks was recorded for that Rey Mysterio episode back in April when they were first shooting. Welcome, Get the Tables. Richard says, hello there, Tom and everyone. Hello, Richard. How are you doing? For those waiting for the next piece of news, 2 minutes. Michael says, hi Tom, maybe unpopular, but Vince retiring is the best thing that happened to WWE in 10 years. I don't think that's going to be an unpopular opinion. I really don't. Simon says, think we'll get a multitude of singles matches in the feud between Boss, Glow, Sasha and Naomi, Bayley's Control faction and the build-up to their expected Extreme Rules Women's Tag Team title matchup. Yeah, I do. Megan says, hello all. Hello, Megan. And Get the Table says, evening to you, Tom. Welcome, mate. Moxie, welcome to you as well. Johnny Mendes says, maybe a silly question, but if Triple H isn't involving himself in NXT, why is he going back to Black and Gold? I think it could be good as 2.0 was in Vince's vision and the Black and Gold was Hunter's, because all of WWE is now Hunter's vision. Vince McMahon, his vision is no longer applicable because it's all now Triple H's vision. So he's been giving instruction to Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels has been taking it from there. He's been very good so far, Moxie. Very good. Stephen says Triple H is making changes to the WWE IC title and WWE Universal Championship. I've heard rumours of this, but I cannot confirm it at this point in time. The IC Championship, though, I can confirm that's been looked at for a while. The redesign that came previously, not particularly popular. Yes, Jane, there will be Sasha news. Simon says, why wasn't Liv on 2 consecutive SmackDowns? She wasn't on the taping on this Friday either. She wasn't there for one SmackDown. Unfortunately, they taped 2 SmackDowns for that one SmackDown. She wasn't on because the WWE, particularly Triple H, is worried about the fan reaction to her, and they're trying to sort of let people breathe a little bit. Spider-Boss says, I read some comments from fans of Liv Morgan saying WWE hasn't booked Liv well as champion. And that's because the WWE has not booked Liv well as champion. Liv's booking is the only thing at the moment left over from Vince McMahon. And I got to say, not the best thing that they left over. We are now on 10 minutes, so the next piece of news. Fightful Select are reporting that Braun Strowman has been discussed internally about an impending return to the WWE. And I've got to say, I don't want to see this. I'm just going to be really blunt on that one. I don't want to see Braun Strowman returning. I don't think he really added anything. That said, I can confirm Triple H is a fan of Braun Strowman. Triple H has, of course, worked with Braun Strowman previously in the Survivor Series match when it was 5-on-5, briefly being choked by him afterwards. It did not go any further than that, but I know that Triple H is a fan. There were plans at the time for a Braun Strowman versus Triple H match, but Triple H simply wasn't able to get himself into a position where he felt confident of having a good match with Braun Strowman. Strowman instead went on to become the monster among men, and of course Choo Choo Braun, which is, I think, his most popular incarnation, Choo Choo Braun. So Braun Strowman has been discussed backstage. He is on the internal list of people to discuss, but not necessarily of people to bring back. I'd be very interested to know if this news came from the Strowman camp or from the WWE camp, because to be honest, I'm not aware of any contact so far personally. There was also a report from WrestleVote saying this is the first time in a long time we've had serious discussions backstage about Roman Reigns losing his championships. Now, there's a number of different ways they could make this happen. Austin Theory could, of course, be heavily involved in this, but right now, I got to be honest, Triple H, while a big fan of Austin Theory, isn't necessarily a fan of him having the briefcase. I'm waiting to see how that plays out as we go forwards. Thank you very much, George Marshall Jr., for subscribing on the YouTube side. Thank you kindly and welcome to the show. This does, of course, mean that the future of Austin Theory is a little more up in the air. However, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, someone may be trying to show Austin Theory the way. That is the plan going forwards. Candice LeRae has also been discussed about an impending return. She's not believed to be ready yet. However, she is someone on the list, and she is someone that the WWE strongly believe will be there as soon as she is feeling ready to compete. As regards Roman losing a Clash at the Castle, that is still not likely. It is still not considered the preferred choice of action, I will say that one. And Drew McIntyre right now is not considered the ideal opponent. Though what I will say is that Drew McIntyre, if he does win the championship, will be handing it off pretty much immediately to Karrion Kross. The plan right now for Roman involves Drew. It also involves Karrion Kross, and I think the more likely next champion is Karrion Kross. Austin Theory, not so much. Kross and Drew McIntyre have a feud ahead of them, so my expectation is that Drew McIntyre will lose a clash, lose again to Karrion Kross, and then Karrion Kross may be the serious threat that we've been waiting for. We still have news on Sasha Banks and Naomi, one more match being added to Clash at the Castle. AEW All Out, Velveteen Dream, and the UK return plans for the WWE. Once we do run out of questions and comments, I will be reiterating and recapping everything that I've spoken about here. But if you have just joined us, we have so far discussed an NXT rebuild impending, planned and cancelled call-ups, NXT's involvement in the draft and at Survivor Series, Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns finally losing his championship. There are currently 80 viewers and only 25 likes. Please remember to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. We started the show on 1,525 subscribers, and we are still trying to make those gains if we can. So remember, if you've already hit like, chat, by all means. Jump in, ask your questions, and keep on going. Simon says, your thoughts on Liverpool's 9-0 win over City's 4-2 comeback win with Haaland hat-trick. Both great showings by two very different teams. Sean says, think the women's tag title match will main event Raw? Yes, I do. It is definitely the big deal at the moment, and it is the hottest story that the WWE have right now. The Worst Channel says, at least Stone Cold one had potential. Gargano turning heel made no sense as he was a John Cena of NXT. Fair, though a lot of people did really want John Cena to turn heel. It's a fair comment. Spider-Boss, I agree. Dropping Maguire. Who'd have thunk it? Simon says, does Triple H like Liv? Because his booking as SmackDown Women's Champion has been very iffy at best. As I say, that was leftover booking from Vince McMahon. Triple H is a fan of Liv Morgan, and she will get a stronger push going forwards. Come on, Tay Jackson says, when the draft comes around, will Toxic Attraction be called up as a group or just GG and JC? It will be a full 3-person team that is called up. Johnny says, when was the NXT rebranding taking place? Was it after the draft or when Europe launches? It is planned to be after the draft, before Europe launches at this point in time. Hector says, I know you mentioned talking about Braun Strowman, but I don't see the appeal in him. Not the greatest in the ring and definitely can't cut a promo. I could go without seeing him on my screen, but that's my opinion. I agree. I personally would not like to see a Braun Strowman return. I don't think that actually helps in any way, shape or form the situation that we walk into, but we are where we are. Steven says, Austin Theory changed his name back. Austin, Raquel, name go back to Gonzalez, Piper Niven, Nikki Cross, let them. There'll be a lot of name changes coming in the next few weeks. James Jones, welcome mate, says, hello everyone. Happy Clash at the Castle weekend. Let's go, baby. We will, of course, be watching Clash live right here on the channel. Richard says, do you know how long will Liv be champion and who will dethrone her? No, I cannot guarantee that at this time. The booking, as I say, is left over from Vince and will be changing. Megan says, I know it's a long shot, but I would love to see Gargano versus Theory happen this weekend. Don't think it'll happen this weekend, but it will be happening. Michael says Braun can stick to controlling his narrative and he may well need to. Hello Wiggly, good to hear. It's good news, mate. I'm excited to see how you enjoy Cardiff. Simon said, is the Winged Eagle Classic WWF WWE Old School title belt coming back, as rumours are just suggesting and saying? No, that belt is not returning. Triple H does not like reaching into the past and that nostalgia. He will not just be bringing back an old belt. Yes, Johnny, Austin Theory is returning to Austin Theory. Stephen says Bronson Reed coming back maybe around Royal Rumble time. I did report on Friday Bronson Reed's name is on the internal list and contact has been made there. I can't say he's going to return when, but it is definitely something under consideration. Wiggly says, I bought gifts to give to... You have fun, mate. Let's not be too creepy about it. I'll say that. Spider-Boss says, I much prefer Bray back on WWE instead of seeing Strowman. Well, you may get both. You may get both. Sean says, former WWE writer Freddie Prinze Jr. said this is the worst he's seen a babyface champion booked and said WWE needs to book Liv better. Now, I agree. They need to book Liv better. As I say, there is a change coming when it comes to Liv Morgan. Noob says, I definitely don't want Braun Strowman coming back because control your narrative. And speaking of CYN, they were at NWA 74 last night. What better way to insult the fans' intelligence? I still remember Ring of Honor bringing in Enzo and Big Cass. Sometimes you just make mistakes. Hey Thomas, no need to apologise. Richard says, I don't want Braun back. It's extremely boring. No star power. He's right up there with Nikita Lyons. Bad. I haven't seen bad from Nikita Lyons, to be honest. Eric Douglas says, 3-part question. 1, what do you think about Vince Russo still writing? It's not great. I think he hasn't really got any new ideas to pitch. 2, by the end of the year, do you see Indy Hartwell going main roster? Yes, I see that sooner rather than later. And 3, when do you think MJF returns? Very nearly at the end of his contract. Negotiations are still ongoing, as I've been reporting for a few months now. We have not hit the nail on the head, as I believe, so far. Spider-Boss says, since Johnny Gargano is one of Triple H's guys, could Johnny Gargano take the briefcase from Theory? Possibly. Possibly. It is not in the discussion right now to take the briefcase, but a feud is in the pipeline. Richard says, thank God about the news on Candice. She'll be an amazing babyface if she's used properly. We will be seeing more of her very soon. James says, I'm way down the road, but I'm pumped for the Royal Rumble with returns, surprises up Triple H's sleeve. If he doesn't use them all now, absolutely. Thank you very much for subscribing, DC. I very much appreciate it. Eric says they don't want to make it out of the UK alive. Not sure what you're saying there, mate. Not sure what you're saying there. And yes, Michael, busy news day today. In fact, let's get to some more news. We have so far discussed the NXT Rebuild, call-ups planned and cancelled, the NXT Draft, the NXT involvement in the draft, and Survivor Series, Braun Strowman potentially returning, and Roman Reigns losing. We will be recapping them as soon as I've gone through the first time and then gone through the questions. Next up is as regards Sasha Banks and Naomi. There are heavy rumours right now that they will be at Raw tonight. Now, as I say, when my return schedule video from 3 weeks ago, I did expect them to be returning in and around Clash at the Castle. The deal has been struck. Everything is waiting to just go formal, and they will be in the Women's Tag Team Championship division. It's very nice seeing so many different reports now confirming what I've already said about Sasha Banks and Naomi. This is one of those where, Unfortunately, I'm going to have to toot my own horn and blow my own trumpet here and say that 3 weeks ago I reported all of this. There are very, very strong rumours right now about this happening. I do expect them to be true, even if they do not return this week, next week. There is one more match expected to be added to the Clash at the Castle docket. Pardon me. And that is the Judgement Day match. Triple H has different plans than what Vince had. Vince's plan was a straight mixed tag. Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley against Beth Phoenix and Edge. Triple H believes that maybe we can make this one last a little bit longer. Edge versus Finn Balor is still a possibility. Adding in Rey Mysterio would be a big help as well. So basically, Triple H wants to add a few blockers. So either the storyline changes and the match stays the same, or the match changes and the storyline stays the same. The end game here is a brief but memorable feud in which Rhea Ripley defeats Beth Phoenix. Edge, however, is believed to be looking at a 3-month-long feud with Finn Balor and the rest of Judgment Day before moving on to new competitors. There are a few people eagerly waiting their turn, including Kevin Owens. I also want to briefly discuss AEW's All Out pay-per-view because I've been speaking to a few people. I'm not the most well connected when it comes to AEW. I've been speaking to people within that company, and the level of excitement about the impending pay-per-view is the lowest that it has been. The lowest that it has been for an upcoming pay-per-view. The lowest level of excitement backstage, and the lowest level of expectation. Tony Khan is supposedly looking at ways to make sure it's a memorable show, but all of the ways that have been suggested so far, people think will detract from the actual quality of this show. Keep an eye on that one, but what I will reiterate is that this is the lowest expectations around an AEW pay-per-view in the company's short-lived thus far history. We have 2 more pieces of news to cover, but plenty more questions to get to first. Come on Say says, will Toxic Attraction be called up as a trio or just Gigi and Jace? At the moment, they are going to be a trio, and they'll be a trio after a call-up. Megan says, nice quiet news day to start the nice quiet week in wrestling. Indeed. I've seen a lot of videos coming out in the past day or so with the news about Sasha Banks and Naomi, for example. I can't cover that. I did that 3 weeks ago. Did all of this 3 weeks ago. So while YouTube is driving traffic to everything titled Sasha Banks and Naomi, with the update that's out there now, I provided that update 3 weeks ago. So we grow a little bit slower here, but we get the news first. That's how I see it anyway. Spider-Boss says, if Roman ever loses his titles, I prefer WWE builds well the one who beats Roman. Would you say that Karen Cross has been built poorly? Megan says it would be nice to see Dakota hold a tag title for more than a day or so. She will. The return of Sasha Banks and Naomi will not be an immediate reclamation of those championships. They'll be putting over the opposition. Steven says India Hartwell may need to come main roster. She's been NXT Tag Team Champion with Candice LeRae down NXT. Put a factor on main roster of Austin Theory, Dexter Lumis, Johnny Gargano. I do think we will see the way again. Yes, Kings Andy, there was an update on Sasha. I will reiterate that shortly afterwards. Get the Table says, heard anything about Jonah? Been seeing his name mentioned. I did discuss Jonah on Friday. I'll reiterate. Jonah has been discussed backstage. He was on a list of people to contact directly that Shawn Michaels has now contacted after his work in the G1. After his work in the G1, it is believed that he will no longer have any contractual obligations to New Japan, and as such, he was likely to come back to NXT to take the place of a Bron Breakker. He won't be long down in NXT, but NXT is certainly the most popular option at the moment. He may negotiate otherwise. Michael says, can't wait to see Dakota as champion. I'm very excited for that as well. You guys know I'm a big Dakota Kai fan. The moment is finally starting to arrive. Spider-Boss says, who was the last SmackDown Women's Champion that got a good booking after winning the title? Charlotte. Definitely Charlotte. Will says, is the reason women like Zoe Stark and Roxanne Perez still being on NXT is because they want them to be at the works for the new era. Yeah, also, they're not believed to be ready yet. There's a lot of people on the NXT roster who just aren't believed to be ready to make the step up just yet. That is, after all, why we have a developmental brand. Worst Channel says, what happens to CYN if he does come back? They just move on without him. EC3 will still find a way to make it work. Camonte Jackson says, will the draft take place after WrestleMania? In discussion, but no guarantees at this point. No guarantees whatsoever. They are still very much getting to it. Did I ignore your question, Get to Tables? If I ignored your question, by all means ask it again. I do sometimes miss things. There's a lot of questions coming in, but I definitely don't want to accidentally ignore a question. Thomas says, what belts do you think could be getting a redesign? The IC Championship has been unpopular since it was changed. Spider-Boss says, talking about Strowman, CYN invaded an NWA event. They did. Rosal says, didn't Braun get released because they thought he wasn't worth the money he was getting paid? If so, if he gets brought back, wouldn't he have to take a big pay cut? Yeah, but so has everybody that was fired by Nick Khan and then eventually brought back. They all had to take pay cuts. Worst Channel says, didn't Cody want to bring the Winged Eagle belt back? He did. That doesn't mean that's going to happen. It is, after all, not his company. Moxie says, Tom, who do you think dethrones Roman? I think it should be Seth. I think it should be Seth. I think Karrion Kross is the name that I'm hearing a lot when I ask that question backstage. Simon says, Dave Meltzer once again proving Tom correct by saying Sasha and Naomi Boss Glow are due back imminently, anytime now, back on the internal active roster list. Spider-Boss says, Indy Hartwell and Dexter Lumis could show Austin Theory the way. Agreed. Simon, I've already spoken about Vince Russo. I don't know if he's consulting. I don't know the guy personally. And I'm not going to sit here and call someone a liar without evidence. Tino's, how you doing, mate? So say, Tom, how are you doing today? Doing very well, thank you. Welcome to the show. Steve says, Colohue, hope you're doing well, sir. Doing very well, thank you, Steve. And to you and yours as well. Stephen says, Sean Waltman, Triple H, bring him back, put him on the writing team. Why? He's never been known as a writer. Joey says, hey, Tom, I missed the first part of the stream, but what is changing in NXT? I will be recapping everything I've said so far once I get through my last 2 pieces of news in the 3 minutes from now. Richard says, does Triple H have plans to change the colour scheme for NXT and get rid of 2.0? I did discuss that earlier on. Colour scheme hasn't been discussed so far, but I did discuss colours, to say the least. As I say, I will be reiterating. Sai says, hi Tom and all. The UK fans could be interesting on Saturday. If they decide to be a heel crowd, the main event may not go as planned. If they're the usual singing football fans, they'll be fantastic. I'm interested to see the response to Drew. I think they'll do alright. David says, Tom, I constantly comment on SRS posts that you had it first. Well, if I did, I did. What can I say? Steve says, Sami Zayn and Usos at Raw this evening, building that KO feud, hopefully. Any chance we can get a Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens reunion with a WWE draft to face the Usos for the tag titles? Why, yes, that is certainly a possibility. There are discussions about a Kevin Owens face turn and a tag team with Sami Zayn. George says, was not expecting a shout out. No worries, mate. I always shout out. If it pops up, always getting a shout out. Sean says, Santana Garrett announced she's back in the WWE Performance Center as a coach. Great news. Richard says, I can't wait for Rhea versus Beth. Neither can I. Neither can I. Rhea's getting the rub. She might not be competing for championships right now, but the rub is very much happening. Thank you, George. I appreciate that. Eric says, I'm sorry, what I was talking about was I don't think the UK will appreciate Drew losing. Well, you say that, but the UK, I think, will also love Roman Reigns. Also, the idea that there's going to be some massive mutiny just because their favourite doesn't win, that's not going to that's not going to be a thing. Moxie says, just give me Cross versus Gunter next year's SummerSlam for the WWE Championship. That would be a lot of fun. Simon says, Tom, Naomi on Twitter saying she's pulling up to something. She is. Spider-Boss says, I think after Sasha was SmackDown Women's Champion, WWE booked poorly the SmackDown Women's Championship. Disagree entirely. Bianca Belair had a good run. Yes, it ended quite abruptly, but she had a good run. Becky Lynch had a great run and a lot of different opponents. Charlotte had a good run with the time she had it. It's been good for people. Thank you, Vegeta. I appreciate that as well. Richard says, are Tyler and Blair winning at WC? Blair, not so much. Tyler, probably. Gotcha, Wiggly. Gotcha. Just thought I'd check. AEW fan says, any chance if Drew wins, he loses one title by being a fighting champion? Possible. Drew's not going to win, though. Wrestler fan says, when should we be seeing Brock Lesnar on TV and pay-per-view again? Around the Royal Rumble time. Eric says, can you see someone like a Will Ospreay or Jay White coming to WWE? Nope. No interest from either of them. Megan says, do we know who will be doing the press junkets for Clash this week? Besides Drew, obviously, might make daytime TV watchable. Sheamus is getting a lot of heat behind him to be someone who gets a lot of interviews, and I do feel he'll be very, very good for it. Neil said a lot of fans were very excited. Asuka versus Io Sky in a live event over the weekend. Fans definitely want this feud on TV. hopefully, it'll be a perfect storyline for Asuka that'll focus on Asuka and Io Sky. And that day is indeed coming shortly. They're keeping them apart in the brawls for an eventual match. Thank you very much, Ryan, for subscribing to the channel on the YouTube side. If you are watching on YouTube, we have 104 viewers right now and only the 40 likes. Please remember to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you're on the Twitch side, click follow. It'll be worth it. 2 more pieces of news to cover, and then I'll just get through the chat and then recap. Velveteen Dream is starting a campaign to get himself back in the WWE. The response I got from WWE officials when I asked about that was no. Just a flat no. None whatsoever. And finally, as regards UK return plans for the WWE, the closure of NXT UK means that we will not see a lot of attention in the UK from the WWE. However, if this show is a success, they are considering once a year holding a pay-per-view in the UK, because after all, they come here twice a year anyway. Simon says, any news when MJF is back? There's strong rumours he's back on Wednesday on Dynamite. No news at this point whatsoever. Also, thank you for that, Simon. I just got through that worst channel. Will says, do you know if they're planning on building NXT to a new building in the future? They are planning on expanding. New building, maybe not. They are planning on keeping it in-house. Sean says, is Mandy losing at Worlds Collide? I'm not going to give a spoiler there, but I don't think she'll be leaving with it, personally, in my opinion. AW fan says, any update on Randy's injury? Still injured, still going to be out for the exact same amount of time as I reported previously, till the end of the year or the beginning of next. Spider-Boss says, I think Cora Jade needs to develop more her heel character before getting called up. She is still in the discussion. Wiggly says, Harry Smith is at a festival in Cardiff. Will WWE re-sign him again? Nope. AW fan says, Nikki Ash okay? She looked like she got hurt on SmackDown. To my knowledge, she got banged up a little bit, but was absolutely fine once being checked out. Gotcha, get the tables. Thank you kindly. Joey says, do you think Santana Garrett returning to work as a coach has something to do with NXT changing? Nope, not really. Just there was an opportunity for a coach and she got it. Vegeta says, Cross has to beat Drew first though. Yes, indeed he does. Simon says, the crew will go nuts over Sasha putting over into, but I really love Io. Sasha and Naomi putting over Kai Sky will be good, huge for their careers on the main roster going forwards. Yes, and that's why they will be losing their championship match back. Spider-Boss says, Charlotte SmackDown Women's title reign of 2017-2018 was better than her last reign of 2011-2022. That's true, but that wasn't the question. Kingsander says, I just want to see Sasha back in the singles division, and yes, I want to see her winning either belt. 30-year-old woman who's uber talented, shouldn't be taking a backseat to people 5 years older. We will eventually see the split up of Sasha Banks and Naomi potentially joining the Bloodline, and then that feud. AEW fan says, do you think if Toni Storm was still a free agent when Triple H took over, she'd be back in WWE? Yes, I do. Moxley says, I'd like to see Roman lose the WWE Championship to Seth at the Royal Rumble. Would be a 1-year build, basically. Seth gets a promo backstage saying this night can't get any better. Then Seth starts watching the Rumble match and Cody returns while Seth is watching. A lot of fantasy booking there. I'm sure you'd have a great time with it. Steven says, Sasha Banks may get a WrestleMania moment. She's having been a 5-time Raw Women's Champion and SmackDown 1-time Champion and a Tag Team Championship. 2-time, I believe. So may get, if she win the Royal Rumble, change title. I don't think she'll be winning the Royal Rumble. That's not in the plans at the moment. Simon says, have you got any new updates on the new AEW All Out pay-per-view matches being added for Sunday's pay-per-view? No, not really, beyond what I've already said, which is, of course, that we are very much expecting the main event to be CM Punk versus Jon Moxley again. AEW fan says, do you think Cody returns at number 30 in the Rumble and wins? Number 30? No. Wins? Yes. Thomas says, when do you see Santos Escobar moving up to the main roster? Around about draft time. Spider-Boss says, Rhea is having the time for life beating up the Mysterio family, Rey and Dominic, and so is Dominic. Thank you very much for subscribing, Bianca, on the YouTube side. If you are currently watching and considering subscribing, now is a perfect time to do so. We have 121 people watching, 44 likes. Please do remember to keep going with those thumbs ups, and we continue to gain subscribers. But what I will say is that there's a lot more news where this comes from. Regulars here will tell you that we share a lot of information here that you cannot find anywhere else until a few weeks later. For example, Sasha Banks and Naomi, the news of their return schedule I published a couple of weeks ago, and you can find that right now here on my YouTube channel, giving you the exact details that are now being released by other wrestling journalists. Wiggly says at the O2 there are more cheers for Roman when he fought Drew. Yeah, Roman's over. Sean says Wade Barrett versus Drew McIntyre. No. AW fan says Tom is my favourite Colohue. Oh, I appreciate that. My family is diverse. Moxie says, I feel like Finn should beat Edge to make the Judgement Day look strong and legit. Who's saying that's not already the plan? AW fan says, do you see someone like Camille as someone Triple H will go after? Not personally at the moment. Jonathan Rodriguez says, hurt, heal. Also, pain and play. Steven says, we do know we're getting Black and Gold back next year. We know NXT UN return. Except for 2023. There will not be, to my knowledge, an NXT UK return if that's what you're going for. NXT Europe will take its place. Sean says, I can see Mandy leaving WC Worlds Collide with both titles. It's not impossible. Certainly not. Anthony says, hi Tom. How you doing, mate? Welcome to the show. AW fan says, do you like the idea of Sarah Logan returning feuding with Liv? Nope. To my knowledge, Sarah Logan does not want to return to wrestling. Wiggly says, did you know about New Japan doing a show in London? Yes, I have tickets for both nights. Vegeta says, it would kill Bron to lose to Tyler, in my opinion. Well, they got to get the championship off him somehow. Moxie says, imagine the top two of the Royal Rumble is Brock and Cody. Then Cody eliminates Brock. That would be epic. Again, great fantasy booking there. Simon says, my friends always see Roman losing his titles before a pay-per-view and then Roman retains. Yep, that's how it always goes. How it always goes. Thank you for subscribing, Anthony. Appreciate that. Wiggly says, how original put the two Japanese wrestlers against each other, not amused. What do you mean? Do you mean Asuka and Io? No, there's a reason for that. There's history there. Like, I get it. And if anything, they're not putting them against each other. They're carefully avoiding putting them against each other till later. Keith O'Toole says, can't wait for WWE Clash at the Castle. I believe it's the 3rd of September. It is. AW fans says, is it possible last night's NWA hinted that Braun is coming back? Control your narrative. Invaded there was no Braun. It's possible that it hinted at it. It just doesn't necessarily mean so. Jaden says, are you going to watch Raw tonight? No, I have work in the morning. Wiggly says, as long as Io and Asuka don't get the watch chance when they rant at each other. Yep, they will, but yep. King Jamesy, welcome. Says, hey Tom, all-time viewer, first time asking, when do you think Johnny Wrestling will have his first match, and do you think there is a plan for Theory versus Gargano with the Money in the Bank on the line? I don't believe the briefcase will be on the line, but there is already very much a plan for a feud between them. First Wrestling, I'd imagine it'll be after the pay-per-view. Wiggly says, will we get any more Raws or SmackDowns in the UK? About the same amount as we usually do. Simon, no, I haven't called that. I don't, to my knowledge, have access to it. Wiggly says, when you say one pay-per-view a year, you mean a stadium show. I mean one pay-per-view a year, didn't say a stadium show. AW fan says, do you think Gallows and Anderson will work with New Japan until Wrestle Kingdom and reevaluate options? They're not under contract from New Japan. I think they're just going to work there. Will says, do you know why Nikita Lyons hasn't been on NXT? Do you know she has heat with some people when it comes to the Candace situation? I don't know anything about that. Don't know anything about it. Hector says, Tom, I realise that neither of us are bookers, but in your opinion, what benefit is there to having Wardlow and FTR in a 6-man tag instead of giving them separate, more important matches? It feels like a throwaway. Well, the benefit is getting them all on the card rather than having 2 matches, which means one of them will have to drop off. They don't want to make their shows as long as they did. Get the Table says, in your opinion, do you think we see MJF in the WWE or signing a new deal with AEW? Negotiations are ongoing, but they have not met in the middle at any point, to my knowledge. I think particularly with Triple H involved, that may have been the contract tampering situation as much as anything else. I think MJF will have had discussions previously with Vince, who is a known contract tamperer, but at this point, with Triple H in charge, I think we are more likely to see MJF in the WWE. That is my opinion. Nothing backstage has gone involved in that. Bailey says, will Saturday's event in Cardiff be the largest turnout in UK wrestling history? I do believe it will, yes. Welcome, Chauncey. How you doing, mate? AW fan says, could Braun return tonight and help Edge? Why? What possible reason would there be for that? Spider-Boss says, a victory against Sasha makes a new star. Look at Bianca after beating Sasha in WrestleMania 37. I absolutely agree. Simon says, any news on when Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly are returning to the ring from injury on AEW Dynamite? Soon. Only information I have. Michael says, not sure if you talked about this, but is there anything to FTR being removed from the video game? To my knowledge, no. I'm waiting on more responses. As I say, I've not got as many connections in AEW as I do in WWE. I'm waiting on more information, but to my knowledge at this point in time, it is simply because they have too many people. Steve says, any news on Bobby Roode? Would love to see the glorious character from NXT Day's return. Bobby Roode is believed at this time to be focusing more on coaching aspect. He's fit and inspiring, but they're taking their time developing him as he was originally intended. Bobby Roode was not brought to WWE to be a wrestler, but they got him in and decided, no, we'll give him a shot. And he ended up being quite important to NXT. Johnny Crow says, I think that would be cool, is if Roman versus Drew ended in both of them pinning each other and that's how they split the titles. I don't see that happening. They're both on SmackDown. What title do you split? AW fan says, do you think Gargano could fill the Daniel Bryan role? Yeah, 100%, absolutely. Mike Rogers says, when can we expect any new championship belts? Relatively soon, I would expect draft time. Jane says, who do you recommend for Raw watch-alongs? Well, actually, they're in the chat right now. Get to Tables do fantastic watch-alongs that I highly recommend and do think everyone should check out. Absolutely. There's also quite a few people here who watch Wrestling Days, and I gotta say, I've enjoyed their work as well. Keith O'Toole says, I thought maybe it was too soon for CM Punk to come back and compete last week with a foot injury. Could have re-risked retirement. His foot's fine. His foot's absolutely fine. It was a kayfabe injury during the match. Megan says, which commentator would you prefer to see step back into the ring for one more feud? Wade Barrett or Corey Graves? Wade Barrett, because I've seen him wrestle. I've never seen Corey Graves wrestle. Kingsander says, Roman doesn't seem to be moving the needle on SmackDown these days. Disagree. Everyone is moving the needle on SmackDown these days. People are tuning in because Triple H is in charge right now. Spider-Boss says, Finn Balor defeating Edge would be great for Finn. Yep, and I do believe expected. Wheelie says, Aaliyah coming over to the UK. Why? Why would that happen? Steve says, would love to see the UK get a yearly pay-per-view. It really does depend on reception. I know UK fans. I find it very likely. AW fan says, do you reckon Jacob Fatu is someone Triple H will pursue? Not at this point in time, but to be blunt, he scouts everybody. He scouts absolutely everybody. So it's hard to say. Joey says, good Braun Strowman being paired with Bray Wyatt. Neither of them are currently employed by the WWE. Simon says, Kurt Angle is doing something with Alpha Academy tonight with Chad Gable. My fave should be good. I think it'll be more focused on Otis personally, who we haven't really seen the same involvement recently. So we'll see how that plays out. Eric says, will Worlds Collide be a US pay-per-view or UK pay-per-view? It'll be a US pay-per-view. Johnny says, is Mako Satomora staying in NXT or going to NXT Europe when it launches? She signed to be a coach for NXT UK before it shut down. She signed to be a wrestler and a coach for NXT UK, and so she has been. She is expected to be a wrestler and a coach for NXT Europe. Will says, do you believe that Triple H will still have big plans for Bianca Belair even when she loses the title? Yes. She's a star maid. She will be heavily involved going forward in the same light that Alexa Bliss is. Steven says, Roman Reigns dropping the Universal Championship because Drew McIntyre needs to get his WrestleMania moment when he beat Brock Lesnar. That's not how wrestling works. It's not defined by moment. After all, the moment may have passed. Steve says, are Doudrop and Nikki Ash due for a breakup after the arguing backstage during SmackDown? I forget who was being interviewed with them in the background at the time. It was Natalya and Sonya Deville. The arguments have been going for a little while now. A breakup is indeed in the offing at the moment, so that Doudrop can split up and go elsewhere. The focus is on Doudrop, not Nikki Ash, though the Nikki Ash character is getting changed. Carlos says, is Jon Moxley still working on a handshake deal, WWE bound? To my knowledge, yes. He is currently working on a handshake extension to his contract. Spider Boss, that depends. Edge would happily roll over and lay down for Finn Balor. Richard Smith says, will Roman reach 1,000 days as champion? Great question. Austin Palmeter says, little late, but here not feeling too well. But two questions. Is it true WWE's interest in Braun, and is it possible we see Bray Saturday? It is possible we see Bray Saturday, yes. Is it likely? No. To my knowledge, a contract has been offered to Bray Wyatt, but I can't say at this point in time that it's been confirmed. I've been reporting ahead of time on this one, and it's funny seeing the reports now that, there's believed to be a high likelihood that Bray Wyatt's going to return a couple of days after I reported that, Bray Wyatt's much more interested now in a return than he has been previously. As regards Braun, I can only say that someone, Fightful Select, has reported that to be the case. Moxie says, Sheamus versus Drew is going to be a banger. Their face-off this week was so intense. I'd imagine you mean Sheamus versus Gunter there. Vegeta says, having beat Tyler, then he relinquishes the NXT undefeated in title defenses. Then we have a tournament to determine a new champion. I hear that every single time a champion is about to lose. However, it's simply not on the agenda. Triple H does not want undefeated when you go up. You give back. Triple H is very classical in his views. You go out on your back. That's how it works in Triple H's world, and that's how it will be going forwards. No news on that one, Thomas, to my knowledge so far. Eric says, what do you think about FTR? Again, no news on that one to my knowledge so far. Camo says, Kai and Sky surely win tonight, right? Yep. AW fan says, if MJF isn't all out, could that mean a breakdown with the sides? Nope, because at the moment that would be status quo. That would be business as usual. He's not there anyway. Hi Jermaine, how you doing, mate? Joey says, do you think of Renee Young possibly coming back has something to do with Jon Moxley? Who said she's possibly come back? She came back to record something. That's all we know at this point in time. Architects of Wrestling says, hi Tom, just joined. Do you believe Bate beats Braun and Bron gets called up? Yes, I do, Architects of Wrestling. Welcome to the show. Spider-Boss says Sheamus versus Gunter is going to be awesome, and I heartily agree. AW fan says if the CM Punk angle is a turn and he shows he wasn't hurt, like a lot think, do you think that's stupid? I do. Yeah, that would be dumb, but that is fantasy booking. Simon says Asuka and Io Shirai have a lot of history in Stardom dating back to the late 2000s. Indeed, they do. Johnny says, when is the draft meant to take place? Up until we saw the report about it happening around many a time, it was planned to be before Survivor Series. To my knowledge, that's still the plan. Spider-Boss says, I'd rather see Roman relinquishing the title after Clash by saying he only cares about the Universal title. Once again, that is not how Triple H operates. Him losing the championship will make a new star, and it would be a huge mistake to have him just surrender the championship when he could make a new star while doing so. AW fan says, is Dominic turning the payoff at Clash? I think a good wrestling match is a payoff at Clash, personally. Welcome, Devon. Thank you very much for subscribing to the YouTube side. Moxley says, hopefully we get Bayley versus Bianca. Wait, okay, that's fantasy booking again. Michael says they're going to swap around the announcers on Raw and SmackDown. Come the draft, they are considering it. No worries to get the tables. You're very welcome. You do great work. So, Kevin says, hey Tom, do you mind elaborating on Sasha and Naomi? I've discussed that at length so far. I will discuss it a little bit on the recap when I've all caught up. We've gone through 10 different pieces of news so far. Now I've just got to get through the catch-up, everyone's questions. So please keep asking your questions if you have them. Once the questions are all caught up, I will recap the news that I've gone through. Wiggly says, who do you think was the biggest star, Chris Jericho or Kurt Angle? Personally, I preferred Kurt Angle. Though Chris Jericho, I think, is the biggest star now. Keith says, also, it's shocking that Thunder Rosa relinquished her AEW Women's World Championship. No, if you know what goes on backstage. Joey says, is Nikki Cross going back to her NXT gimmick? Yes and no. She's going back to a previous gimmick, but it's an evolution of that character, because her NXT gimmick just didn't have enough going on with it. Sean says, Rey Mysterio said in his Rivals documentary, custody storyline between him and Eddie was pitched by Bruce Pritchard and Eddie Guerrero. Dominic also said he was approached by WWE to be in that storyline, and they got a payout for it, and so he should. Frankie, welcome, says, I know we're getting a lot of returns thanks to Triple H, but do you think he's going to end up releasing a lot of the guys he hasn't been using? Nope. AEW fan says, is there a big chance All Out ends up a cluster? Not necessarily. I still think it'll be a tight and compact show. It just won't be to the level of previous ones. Jaden says, will Clash at the Castle be UK time? It will start at 6 PM UK time. Simon says, Aaliyah is improving, very impressed by her development so far this year. Agreed. Moxie says, again, fantasy booking. Jermaine says, Tom, it is now being reported by other outlets that WWE is trying to figure out a way to get one of the titles off of Roman. It's amazing to me how you have the story first and yet don't get the credit. I know, right? Oh well. We do what we can here. We do what we can. It was nice to see a report of mine pop up in Wrestling Edge a couple of weeks ago. That was quite nice. It was nice to see. Get the Table says, how excited are you to see Gunter versus Sheamus this weekend? Quite excited. It's going to be very hard hitter. I'm just really thrilled by the prospect. Also, Sheamus getting his flowers. Absolutely should. Absolutely should. AW fan says, what about Tegan Knox? She was not released due to storyline. She was released because they didn't believe she was ever not going to be injured. Austin says, I really want Shayna to win, but there was a video Shayna Ronda training. Shayna isn't taking her serious. Ronda said, yeah, that's the whole character at the moment. That is the whole character right now. Shayna is not taking it seriously enough. A loss to Liv Morgan could certainly make her focus. Michael says, I really want either a Tony Kyrie or Thunder Rosa Kyrie match at an AEW Stardom show. Could be fun. Will says, I see people are reporting the same news about Sasha Banks and Naomi coming back, but you did that a month ago. How funny. Now, guys, just before I get to you, Chris, first I'll actually jump this in. Welcome, Chris. Welcome to the show. And hope you stick around. Hope you're enjoying it so far. As regards the Sasha and Naomi report that I put out and that is now popping up elsewhere, this is why I always suggest to people spread the word and subscribe. Because the regulars here are the ones I give the news to. Now, what you do with that news is up to you, but it's not going to pop up anywhere else. Not only that, but if you're a regular here, you are the one who's able to sit here and say Tom Colohue is trustworthy or not trustworthy, because you're here. You know what I report, and you know how often this exact situation happens. You would know if I was coming out with garbage. You would know this. Instead, this exact situation keeps happening. And I'm loving the amount of people on Twitter who are out there spreading the word. I am so grateful to all of you who do that. Regardless of quite often people trying to shout you down. But I'm so grateful for everyone spreading the word. That's one of the main reasons we've had new records over the past month. One of the main reasons we currently have more than 100 people here. One of the main reasons we are growing so fast is because so many of you are here so often. You know what I'm all about here. You know what I deliver. And you know what we're all about here. I'm so grateful to all of you for being so supportive. Ghost says, hey Tom and chat, hope everyone's doing well. Realistically, who do we see as the biggest possibility of being the Joker in the casino ladder match? MJF seems to be the popular answer, but I'm not too sure about that. Seems fair. I'm interested to see who the options are. I'd love it to be Samoa Joe, I'll say that. Rock Pillar, thank you very kindly for subscribing on the YouTube side. If you're thinking about subscribing, please consider, doing so. We are also on 49 likes right now. 49. One more thumbs up and we reach an even 50. Please consider it. Thomas says, do you know when FTR's contracts end? Is surely fixing the tag division is Triple H's next task after solving the women's division? Yes, it is. Triple H is putting a lot of focus right now into the tag division. We haven't been able to see it on screen as of yet, but that moment is coming at some point soon. So FTR would be a very good shout and certainly a team that Triple H wants to work with again, but they are still under contract. I don't know the date of their contract. Spiderboss says, what is next for Lashley's USA title reign? He has a number of competitors lined up, a number of competitors to take on. My expectation is that there is a Bobby Lashley AJ Styles feud coming. Austin says, could we see Sasha and Naomi come out tonight? Anything is on the table. If you've been following my reports, you'll know pretty much exactly when we're expecting Sasha Banks and Naomi. Camo says, hope you're doing well, by the way, Tom. Let's have a fun Raw tonight. I'm doing very well, thank you, Camo. Hope the same of you. And I think everyone's looking forward to Raw and SmackDown nowadays. Triple H, you've got to say, he's done a fantastic job. Spiderboss says, who do you think is the best foreign player to ever play for Liverpool? I don't know. Van Dijk? Sammy Hippier? King Jamesy, thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much for chatting. Welcome to the show, and I hope you've had a great time so far. AW Fan says, is there plans for NXT to do pay-per-view events outside of Florida? Not at this point in time, no. Rockpillar says, what do you think will happen with Dragunov when he's back from injury? I think he'll be coming from the championship, and I think he'll find himself a Tyler Bate ready and waiting for him. Of course, it's a different championship, but he'll be coming nonetheless. Richard says, Thunder Rosa didn't relinquish, she's still the champion. Whoever wins Saturday will face Thunder later to determine the champ. Fair, thank you very much for reminding us of that, Richard. And thank you for following on Twitch, Che Adams. Thank you very much. Keith says, who won the NWA? Well, I have no idea. Austin says, what do you think is going to be the AW All-Out pay-per-view main event? Moxley, Punk, MGF maybe. Just Moxley versus Punk. Just a rematch there. Neem says, do you think Taya Valkyrie is next to come back to WWE since she's a Triple H wrestling? I don't believe we're going to hear much more as regards Taya Valkyrie or John Morrison in the WWE at this point. There will eventually have to be the moment when people say that's enough now. Mike Rogers says, is KO being pushed as a top heel or face? Same for Sammy. KO right now is not being pushed as a heel or a face. He's just being pushed. There is definite talk of a face turn in his future, just solidifying, but at the moment their focus is just on rebuilding him as a threat. As regards Sammy, he's a heel at the moment, but he's a heel who could flip at any time. I've certainly spotted that, Spider-Boss, that's true. Eric says, what do you think about Liv training with Riddle? I like that she's diversifying her training, that she's training with some new people. It certainly adds a little bit extra, just a little bit extra for the overall development and in-ring style. She continues to learn and grow, and that's a great thing. Sai says, I love that having 100 plus viewers is normal here now. Keep hitting the thumbs up, people. It helps. It does. We've peaked so far, I believe, 119. 119, which is a great number. Thank you, everyone. Even if you've just been in for a couple of seconds, thank you very much. Connor says, did you see Live and Riddle training videos? Yes, I did. Austin says, is it true Triple H is working on new title belt designs? Yes, it is. The Intercontinental Championship belt is the one I've mentioned the most. Thank you, Shogun, very much for subscribing to the channel, and welcome very much to the show. I'm sorry to hear that, James Stewart. We as Si mentions later on, Andrew Zarian is indeed a friend of the channel. He popped in before and gave us a bit of a shout out. It was very nice. Hector says, so Tom, if Triple H is wanting to pivot NXT closer to black and gold, does that mean less younger stars or no? Because that's my biggest reason. I believe not Mako, but the former Priestley is taking those titles at Worlds Collide. There will be still a focus on younger stars. More of the older talent who came in to NXT will be moving up to the main roster. The main rosters are about to get big. Architect says, first stream and just subscribed. Thank you kindly. You made me a fan of you and I'm going to take your word up. I don't believe there's a need to take my word over anyone else's. There are plenty of reliable people out there that I think are worth tuning into. The ideal method for me of wrestling journalism is collaborative. It's just a shame that that's not the ideal method for quite a number of the journalists out there. Spiderboss says, I hope Roman retains on Saturday. He will. Thank you, Dark Knight, for the 50. Appreciate that. Jermaine said, this is why I believe Karrion Kross is the one to beat Roman for one of the titles this year, because it'll be creating a new star and he can use it more than Drew can right now. I agree. That's exactly what I expect to see. Jane is excited for Sasha's hair colour. Johnny says, with the black and gold coming back, can we expect TakeOver to come back soon as well? Not necessarily the word TakeOver, but yes. Welcome, Kura. How you doing? Kervin says, I don't mind to see Sasha and Naomi back, but I don't see both women becoming Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion because I want to see new talent. They won't be immediately in the chase for that, not at all. Steve says, would Killian Dane be someone Trips would be interested in bringing back? He was a fan of Killian Dane. Certainly, I think that's someone that could be involved, but I don't think he'd be involved in the main roster. And I don't think he's the level of surprise that Triple H is looking for right now. As I've mentioned, Triple H is currently working with a backlog of surprise returns. Like just a backlog, a real huge collection of returns to come in. So he's trying to stagger them out of it. Keith O'Toole says, where has Brock Lesnar been since SummerSlam? At home. Shogun says, hi Tom, hope you're doing fine. Any news for Bray since the last time? Maybe. Not since the last time. On Friday we reported about the contract approach, and that is the latest update. Go says, congrats to Nikki Bella for her wedding. Also appears Jeff Hardy's now out of rehab, as mentioned by Rebby on the House Hardy stream. Been photographed with a fan recently, so good news all around. Good news indeed, and long may that continue. Barry says, is that the reason for the channel growth? That's good. I thought it was a full moon and Jupiter being in conjunction with Mars and something else. Yeah, I like to lay out why the channel is growing, because I think that's a great way of saying to, one, other content creators who are in fact in the channel right now, here's the ways that the YouTube algorithm works to my experience. Some people here are more experienced than I am, but certainly I can share my findings on it. And secondly, it tells people exactly how best to help and support the channel. Jay, I support Liverpool. Simon says, great pick, Tom, because I just read today Mike Johnson, PWInsider, that Samoa Joe is ready to return. Well, that may have been one of the reasons that I mentioned it. Spiderboss says, could Sami Zayn cost the match to Drew at Clash of the Castle? Yep. AW fans says, all these returns to load the roster up so draft would have lots to choose from. Yep. James Stewart, got it. Patrick says, I've seen people say they don't want Bronson Reed back because he badmouthed WWE. These were the same people who wanted CM Punk to come back. Indeed, he is definitely on the docket at the moment. Dog Knight says, I wish the Intercontinental belt was as big as it was 30 years ago. It is not, but it is going to be built. I just can't sit here and say it's going to be built to that level again. Check it out, Keith. It's quite fun. Daz says, Tom, if Seth beats Riddle on Saturday, do you think he turns? No, I don't think he turns. After all, Riddle is still a face. I think Seth will be a heel for a while. Yeah, but there is a strong push coming. Great question, Spider-Boss. Building up on a lot of different guesses. Richard says, will Triple H keep the main men's and women's title the same design or go back to separate designs? I don't believe we're going to see separate designs. It wasn't necessarily his choice. And don't forget, he does have to get things through Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon. Stephanie McMahon was also a part of choosing these designs, for example. Patrick says, I've seen... Oh, I already read that one. Spider-Boss says, I always wonder what made Karrion Kross special, his entrance or Scarlet. Both, and also his overall demeanour. Sean says, would Triple H have brought back Claudio if he wasn't in AEW? He will have tried to, however, Claudio didn't get fired. He chose to leave. Austin says, a lot of wrestling this week. A lot of wrestling news as well. Will says, to know how Triple H feels about Diamond Mine, or is he trying to figure out what to do with Roderick Strong? He likes Roderick Strong. He wants to use him. Diamond Mine, there's a lot of working back and forth, but Triple H is not directly involved in the writing of NXT. James says, Tom, you point a lot. Got it. That's what I like about you. Don't make stories for clout. Also, a lot of the biased Mills narrative is falling apart. It is, isn't it? It is. Simon says, do you see Roddy Strong ended up in AEW in the Undisputed Elite? I did until Triple H took over. Wiggly says the IC belt will never be as big as it used to be ever again. Correct. There's 2 world championships. It can't be. Sean says many have badmouthed WWE and came back like Bret Hart and Cody Rhodes. How about Chris Jericho? Several times. Thomas says, do you think that we could see any returns at Clash of the Castle? Everything is on the table. Spider-Boss says, I think The Miz has been the best IC champion in the last 5 years. I agree. Wiggly says, is Ronda and Becky coming to the UK? To my knowledge, Becky is, but mostly in support of Seth. Ronda is not planned at the moment, to my knowledge. Charlotte is. Charlotte's going to be in the UK. D. Freeman says, at the same time you're reporting on Braun Strowman, reports about report alert on that at the same time. Oh, Bleacher Report. Yeah, that report will come from Fightful Select, who did report it first. Connor says, do you see Ronda and Shayna moving to the tag division post-Clash? I'd love that, and I do think that's how we're going. Patrick hopes Drew wins. I don't personally see it. Spider-Boss says, Raw is going to be very interesting. Hopefully so. Wiggly, yeah, Okada and Jay White are there. You don't get bigger. Eric says, what do you think is next for Seth and Riddle after Clash at the Castle? Separation. Indeed, Shogun, you have been watching. Dad says, do you think we could see returns of Clash like of Cody or the Mysterios versus Judgment Day? Cody is not fit yet. Nowhere close, so he will not be returning. Wiggly says, Ronda and Beth and Charlotte are not taking part in any meet and greets, right? To my knowledge, Charlotte is. Doug Knight says, is there any chance Brett could open the show on Saturday and come out with Bulldog's son, or maybe come out with Bulldog on a show? Why would that happen? No reason for that. Cameron says, I hope Charlotte returns in the feuds of Ronda non-title. Certainly a possibility. Trekopedia, interesting name, says Sasha and Naomi returning tonight. All of the news that I have on Sasha Banks and Naomi is in a video entitled Sasha Banks and Naomi Return Schedule from 3 weeks ago. The news that's coming out right now was on that video 3 weeks ago. Keith O'Toole likes the old IC Championship belt. Ooh, Sean says the new Raw banner was released. Bailey Seth. You put Bailey twice. Lashley? Bianca, Edge and Rhea on it. Spider-Boss says, when you told Sasha and Naomi signed their new contracts and the Wrestling Observer and Fightful were reporting the same news. They were indeed. They absolutely were. Okay. Gotcha. So just to reiterate the news that I've reported today. Discussions have already started about an NXT rebuild. It is not believed to be the priority of Triple H at this point in time. Shawn Michaels' promotion is largely based on making this happen. NXT is planned to go back towards black and gold, though not all the way. As a large part of this, NXT Europe and NXT Asia will be launching next year formally, and we will see a lot of changing as regards people from one side moving to the other, and so on and so forth. NXT will be its own entity, feeding itself and then feeding the main roster. There are a number of call-ups planned. We've mentioned Toxic Attraction, Bron Breakker, and of course Legado del Fantasma, but there was a number that were cancelled as well. There's a couple of names that have been discussed. For example, Cora Jade is a name that has been discussed as well as someone looking at being brought up sooner rather than later. As well as that, Cameron Grimes' name is being discussed as well, but not confirmed at this point in time. As regards the NXT's involvement in the draft, at this point in time, NXT is believed to be heavily involved in the upcoming draft. Triple H wants a number of different call-ups at draft time, and they will be as involved as they were in the previous one. When it comes to Survivor Series, there is no plan for involvement from NXT in Survivor Series. Fightful Selective reported that Braun Strowman is in discussions for a potential return. Backstage in WWE, they've been discussing that as a possibility. It's not something I personally want. I don't really see what he's adding to it. There has also been a report from WrestleVotes about Roman Reigns finally having discussions in and around him about losing his championship. I still don't believe that is going to be happening at Clash at the Castle. Sasha Banks and Naomi are due back shortly. For more information on this, check out my video from a few weeks ago. But at the moment, things have updated ever so slightly when it comes to Sasha Banks and Naomi, in that there's a hell of a lot of rumours right now stating that they will be returning tonight. My expectation was either this week before Clash or next week after Clash to challenge the new Women's Tag Team Champions. I still believe the most likely scenario is after Clash of the Castle, but that is just my opinion. One more match to add to Clash of the Castle will be the Judgement Day match against Edge. It was originally going to be Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Finn and Rhea under under Vince. However, with Triple H involved, there's a few changes already being made. Backstage in AEW, the locker room and certain other people, let's say executives, let's just say people backstage, have low expectations for AEW All Out. Morale is moderately low compared to how it has been, and the overall belief that the show is going to be a hit is the lowest it's ever been in AEW. All of their pay-per-views have absolutely knocked it out of the park. This is the first time they haven't really believed it's going to be the one. Velveteen Dream has launched a campaign to return to the WWE. The WWE are not interested. And as regards the UK return for the WWE are waiting to see the results of Clash at the Castle to see how much interest they get overall. And of course, that will determine the future of UK wrestling from WWE. If things go well, the WWE are considering having one pay-per-view per year in the UK. I'm going to catch up with the chat and then we will be wrapping up. Wiggly says the old school black rectangular style IC belt Bulldog held was the best. I enjoyed some of the Intercontinental Championships, I'll say that. Dad says, what time does it start on Saturday? 6 p.m. Sean says, Ronda isn't in the Survivor Series poster. Do you think she won't be scheduled for the show? No, I think she'll be there. I definitely think she'll be there. Connor says, if Triple H really wants to fix Liv's reputation as champion, a returning Charlotte would be the ideal candidate to put her over, seeing as a SmackDown belt is seen as Charlotte's belt, and that is in the agenda. I've discussed that a few times so far over the last few weeks. Eric says, how about this? After Liv wins at Castle, whichever NXT champion loses her belt, feuds with Liv next. I mean, they could. They need a proper heel, though, and that doesn't work for me. If you have it as a call-up, people will cheer the call-up, and then Liv's not getting cheered. Camo says, do we know who Karrion Kross is facing next week? Wasn't even aware he was having a match next week. Spider-Boss says, it's been an amazing spoiler warning today. Thank you, Spider-Boss. I try my best to entertain. I have no idea who's going to choose what based on all of those hypotheticals, Moxie. You go ahead and you call it, Trek. You go ahead. Coffee says NXT 3.0, please. They will be going backwards on that one. Dad says, do you think it'll be Newcastle on Wednesday? Maybe. I don't know. Moxie says, this spoiler warning was fantastic as always. Thank you kindly. Mick says, I like that you stream longer today. Well, we had a lot of news. We had a lot of news to cover. What can I say? Michael says, will anyone be moved to NXT in the draft? Yes, they will. They absolutely will. That is very much the plan. Just going to get rid of a troll here, because why are we wasting our time with that crap? So yes, that is a plan to have some moves to NXT as well. Barry says, I hope NXT doesn't go too far back to black and gold. It had great wrestling, but it's extremely boring, whereas new NXT is fun to watch. They didn't have the characters. That is what they are planning to retain. Key says, any plans for Survivor Series? The only match that is fully confirmed at this point is Gunther versus Bobby Lashley. Everything else is still up in the air. Will says, do you know anybody else Triple H is bringing back in a backstage role from his team, like Road Dogg? That is basically his team at this point. He is still putting things together. I've mentioned Lita, for example, as well. Bismo, War Games at Survivor Series is on the table. Coffee believes a return for Sasha and Naomi before the pay-per-view makes no sense. I kind of agree with that one. Sai says, rumours that Triple H wants to bring NXT in line with a spoiler warning, black and gold. Tom has an impressive reach. Try my best, Sai, try my best. Camo says, it's all out like AEW's WrestleMania. AEW doesn't really have a WrestleMania, what can I say? Daz, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't really follow AEW that much, so I'm not sure. NXT Europe will be debuting the beginning of next year. Spider-Boss says, fans like it or not, Charlotte is the heel that will make Liv look great as champion. Yep, and Liv needs that right now. She needs someone that people hate. Coffee says, what about The Fiend? My reports on The Fiend are already live on YouTube. There is one from a couple of weeks ago featuring his, a a contract offer, and there was an update, on Friday. Moxie says, Tom, WrestleTalk just said Rhea is teasing a match with Beth. Yep, she is. She absolutely is. Kura says, all of this week's SmackDown's already out in the wild as it was filmed last week. Yep, that's not really a surprise, is it? Wiggly says, did WWE still want to do Starrcade house shows? It's a shame to lose such a historic event. They still have it, and I think with Cody there, definitely. Stuart says, cracking show, Tom. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Stuart. Johnny says, great show. Thank you, Johnny. Wiggly says, AW's WrestleMania is double or nothing, I believe. They don't really have a WrestleMania. Trekker Peter says, do they introduce new titles for NXT next year and retire the old ones this weekend? A lot of hypotheticals there, once again. Renegade says, Karrion Kross versus Gunter in the future. I wonder if they will involve both their wives. There'll undoubtedly be discussions from Scarlett. However, I didn't know Gunter was married. Barry says, I agree with whoever said spoiler warning has been excellent. Thank you, Barry. Right. So, we have gone 10 minutes over. We're going to wrap it up there. Great show, everyone. Thank you very much. We peaked at 119 viewers. We have 64 likes. And we have gained ourselves some subscribers. But more importantly, 10 pieces of news all out there now, which undoubtedly you're going to see popping up elsewhere. Just to be clear, as regards Sasha Banks and Naomi, there's no smoke without fire. No smoke without fire. And I will leave that there. I've been Tom Colohue. You've been fantastic. I'll see you all very soon.